Hello, and welcome to my tiny laptop. I'm Brian Hodge, and I've always been curious about how our health is influenced by our daily lifestyle choices, which is probably why I find aging such an interesting field of study, because how we age is perhaps the best indicator of one's health. These interests ultimately led me to the Kapahi lab at the Buck Institute, where it's our mission to understand the roles of nutrient signaling and metabolism play in aging and aging related diseases. So, whenever I give a talk to the public, whether that be a formal lecture or a quick chat around town, I'm always approached with the same question. And it's what can we do right now to live longer? And as much as I'd like to reach into my pocket and pull out a magical elixir for extending lifespan, we just aren't quite there yet. But what I do think most scientists would agree on is that our best anti aging drug isn't actually a drug at all. To date, nothing we can prescribe brings more beneficial effects than maintaining a proper diet and exercising regularly. And the earlier these lifestyle changes are made, the better. Diet's influence on aging and longevity is not relatively new observation. We've known for quite some time that what we eat has a huge ramifications on our health and well-being. Perhaps the most common and well-studied lifespan extending dietary paradigm is calorie restriction. And as the name suggests, calorie restriction is typically defined as a reduction in total calorie intake at or around 30% of what one would normally consume. Calorie restriction delays most age-related physiological changes, and it can extend lifespan across an array of animals, from fruit flies and mice to even non-human primates. And the phenotypic benefits can be quite striking. These monkeys are chronologically the same age, but biologically speaking, the calorie-restricted monkey is actually much younger. So, why is fasting so beneficial? Well, first off, when we are in a fasted state, our cells activate a barrage of pro-survival responses. This is often referred to as the hormesis effect, where mild stress is actually a good thing, as fasting triggers the activation of many cellular repair and regenerative mechanisms within our cells. This is similar in effect to what happens around here with good wine, as seasons with harsh climates and droughts provide the environmental stress needed to produce the best tasting grapes. Secondly, calorie restriction has a large metabolic and energetic component. Most scientists would agree that, in simple terms, aging can be defined as an accumulation of damage over time. And things that can mitigate or repair damage that occurs each day, in theory, should slow aging. We know that the byproducts of cellular metabolism are inherently very damaging to the cell, and calorie restriction has been shown to reduce metabolic rates and associated cellular damage, thus slowing aging. One way to think about the energetic theory of aging is to liken cellular metabolism to a gas-powered engine. The more fuel you burn and the faster you drive, the more wear and tear occurs and the faster your engine deteriorates or ages. So, if we know that calorie restriction is such a powerful therapeutic against aging, why isn't everyone doing it? Well, obviously, the biggest problem with these diets is compliance. As for most people, the benefits of calorie restriction just don't outweigh the toll chronic starvation has on one's quality of life. But fortunately, for us, recent science has found a way to harness the beneficial effects of calorie restriction without the need to chronically starve yourself. Instead of restricting calories or certain nutrients, we now know that restricting the time in which you eat each day or compressing the feeding window can yield similar health benefits. In the medical field, we call this time-restricted eating, but the trendier term you may have heard of is intermittent fasting. Most time-restricted eating paradigms recommend restricting the eating window down from 12 hours a day to 6, thus extending the period of time that our body is in a fasted state. And the longer our bodies are in this fasted state each day, the better the health benefits appear to be. So what makes this diet so attractive? Well, for starters, time-restricted eating works without changing the total amount of calories you eat each day. You simply need to just eat all 3 of your meals within a compressed time frame. And time-restricted eating really busted on its scene back in 2012, when a group of researchers down at the Salk Institute in La Jolla, led by Dr. Sachin Panda, demonstrated that restricting the feeding window of mice that were reared on a high-fat diet was able to completely protect them against diet-induced obesity and fatty liver, while consuming the same amount of calories as the mice that were given access to food at all times of day, which they ended up becoming obese and ultimately diabetic. Since then, animal studies and human trials have consistently demonstrated the beneficial effects of time-restricted eating, and these benefits extend far beyond that of just a typical weight loss diet. For instance, time-restricted eating has improved cardiovascular system and gut function. It helps maintain blood pressure and protects against insulin resistance. Additionally, time-restricted eating aligns and amplifies circadian rhythms. And recent work by our lab and others has begun to demonstrate the anti-aging effects of restrictive diets are actually mediated by circadian molecular clocks that exist throughout the body. And I'd like to end my talk with a little perspective about the Buck and the future of aging research. My time at the Buck Institute has been both fascinating and inspiring. I believe we are truly at an inflection point in the aging field, where new discoveries and technologies, coupled with a lot of hard work, have led to some awesome findings. Discoveries that I believe will fundamentally change how we go about tackling some of the hardest questions in aging, and ultimately, how we translate those findings into novel therapies. At the same time, we've witnessed a huge influx of public interest in this space, which I must say, as a scientist, is really fun. As we always seek to work on problems that are not only interesting to us, but are important and relevant to human health. As aging remains the main risk factor for many diseases and is something we will all experience, it's hard to imagine something more relevant to study. Thank you for joining me, and good luck fasting.